Today I'll go over the first 3 episodes of Horizons, and we'll see how it fares so far. I thought about giving a spoiler warning, but realized who'd go into our review video this long and expect no spoilers. What I will say though is that I'll be mentioning some events and details within Ash's series, nothing too major. With that being said, we kick off Horizons with a 2-parter. We get a montage of wild Pokemon like some kind of nature documentary meant to parallel Pokemon to animals in real life, but instead of commentating on Pokemon, the narrator focuses on the audience and tries to encourage viewers to experience the
beauty, joy, and excitement
within it. It all sounds too peachy, as if there's no danger associated with an adventure. This kid is even on an adventure, and I'd be concerned about the fire if I was there. Are Charmanders local to forest areas, chilling with people in their houses made of wood? That tells a fire hazard by itself, and there's more fire hazards to come. So I'll start a counter now. Time for the actual story. Liko arrives in Kanto, trying to reach her boarding school. She waits at the bus stop where she monologues about her poor social skills. This came into play later when she's given motivation to interact with the 2 other girls that was at the bus stop with her when they started watching YouTuber Nito-Thing's video. Liko misses out on making friends with them because she's hesitant as to how she can start the conversation. I can empathize with that. Strangers can be as judgy as all hell. Liko loves Nito-Thing just as the other girls do, but she doesn't give a reason why until episode 8. She monologues more at the front of Indigo Academy, heads inside, past a poly world that's squirting a sizable stream with no visible orifice. Then she meets Anne, a girl much more energetic than her, however, supposedly really bad at housekeeping. She implied that she knew she'll have a roommate and that it'll be Liko, so like, Anne, if you know you're bad at housekeeping and you know a roommate is coming, shouldn't you at least try cleaning up? At least keep the mess on your side of the dorm and hope your roommate won't judge too much. Anne and Liko converse about backgrounds, and we learn that Liko is from Paldea, whereas Anne has been in Kanto her whole life. Anne says she can be Liko's guide around Viridian City, but that never happens.
After the welcome ceremony, we're gonna do the thing! Do what thing? What thing do you think? Our partner Pokemon!
Very poor choice of words. Well, Pokemon has named a mobile game Master Sex, so should I even be surprised? Liko reveals she had to go through a school interview in order to be paired with a starter after Anne asked for her experience. A Charmander spawns in front of Liko's face, and as soon as the student comes to pick it up, the tail along with a flame points downwards. Something's getting burned. At night, Liko can't fall asleep, still thinking about her future partner, monologuing away and listening to Anne snoring. The next day, nameless ceremony woman here started speeching.
Welcome to the exciting, wonderful world of Pokemon. A group of creatures most unusual.
So the other group are humans, right? Are there more? Also, did she use this thing behind her at all? With how advanced the technology is in this world, you'd think if she was trying to present Pokemon to new students and display how amazing they are, she'd try to utilize visuals, or even better, bring a Pokemon in for visible and live interaction. She could have even shown them coming out of a Pokeball for a dramatic entrance. Instead, there's just a static Pokeball behind her. She expects preteen students to concentrate their attention all on her for the full duration of the ceremony, while she's blabbering on about how Pokemon make their homes in the sea, in the sky, in forests, and in towns. But then she ends that with,
in fact, you can find them everywhere.
ruining the whole point of saying Sea Sky Forest Town. You kill your own retention, lady. So, if you remember what Anne said, after the welcome ceremony, they're gonna do the thing! Anne unboxes her Oshawott, then Liko unboxes Sprig, after monologuing about the importance of first impressions. Unlike Anne, who immediately hugged her partner, Liko's stuck in awe of Sprig. Here I'd like to mention a dub change. In the sneak peek, Rotom pronounced Sprigatito like a normal person, naturally saying the word, but they made Zeno redo it, and now the finalized dub pronunciation emphasizes the Tito at the end.
Sprigatito has been registered to your Pokédex. Sprigatito has been registered to your Pokédex.
Just ever so slightly bothersome. Liko wanted to hold Sprigatito dearly, but got scratched instead. Liko, it seems like you got the worst partner out of anyone here because everyone else is portrayed as doing just fine with their starter. Sprig's just up and leaves, dashing out of the classroom, but the previous shot at that classroom door closed. Even if Sprig silently pushed it somehow, it would have never opened towards the class. And now this classroom's absurdity is the displayed in its full glory. Why is there randomly installed shelves covering the space on their chalkboard? Do they want to use it or not? Why can't they just have the books along the top of the pigeonholes like the other books? Fire Hazard 3 is also chilling in the corner. Not a single person notices this mess that Liko's dealing with. Is his peripheral vision broken? Liko's clearly the odd one out, displaying relatively unique behavior compared to the rest of the class, shuffling herself out of the room. Teacher, do something, please! Don't they have protocols and or precautions for incidents like this? Also, does the school teach the starters to behave at all? This pathetic school has absolutely zero thought put into the possibility of an incident like this. Liko even says,
I was so not ready for this.
since Sprig exclusively reacted defensively, I'd hope there'd be some compelling backstory to make sense of this uniqueness. Like Liko monologue, first impressions are important, and that goes both ways. Cat scratches can lead to infections, okay? Can you believe I got one during the process of making this video? A cat scratch, I mean, not an infection. Why are you quirky? I know why Froakie was quirky. He wanted to pick out the best trainer, because he's worked hard to better himself, so his standards for a trainer are high. But why you? The cat teleports to a roof nearby, whilst Liko tries to sniff its scent, sending her to a balcony. Wait. Liko full healed herself off screen? That's cheating! Spriggs jumps back into Liko's face. Then with Spriggs' weight upon Liko's eyes, she tips over the railing and falls to her coma theory. Okay, no. They go through some forest and it's somehow sunset? Liko finally manages to hold Spriggs dearly, but then decided to take a huge whiff of its feet. I don't think Sprig agreed to that one. What are those strange structures, by the way? They look out of place compared to the surrounding landscape. Okay, so this is the part where the YouTube sneak peek ends, which means the dub footage shown after this will unfortunately include a BBC in the corner of the screen, but that's the reality unless I overlay the English audio with the Japanese footage, but that'd burn all my time away, so corner BBC it is. Now Nidothing is here to exposition us in full screen. She defines a Pokemon trainer as someone who raises Pokemon for Pokemon battling, but then
And we all know the thing every Pokemon trainer wants to be more than anything ever! Pokemon Champion!
what?
The thing every Pokemon trainer wants to be more than anything ever! Pokemon Champion!
That definition doesn't even qualify Brock as a Pokemon trainer, because he just wants to be a Pokemon breeder, not a champion. I can only assume this is Nidothing's own misconception. Oh, so the writers did remember. After Liko monologues about worries concerning Spriggs, we transition to the next day where Spriggs decided to scratch instead of taking the perfect opportunity to super effectively stab Oshawott, justifying Liko's concerns. Liko apologizes to Spriggs even though she didn't do anything wrong here. Weed Cat, I don't know what you expected when Anne told Oshawott to
Use water gun.
Not only did you rush in, but you were still slower than Oshawott, who waited for a command.
Well, you won't become a champion like that. Yeah.
Well, she didn't say she wanted to be one in the first place. Ugh, this whole champion thing is a mess. Even if Anne goes on to be champion, trying to pass on Nidothing's awful generalization as fact still doesn't work.
It's always doing its own thing. Half the time, I don't even know what it's thinking.
She realizes that other people also say this about her, so she makes the connection this is how they're similar, and we're left to assume that's why Spriggs was picked to be Liko's partner. How is this level of personality accuracy determined in an interview? Is this where the school's strengths lie? Here, have a quirky partner. We're not gonna tell you how to deal with it though. Have fun. Anne says to them,
You should both just figure out what you want and then tell each other.
you should both figure out what you want and then tell each other? And did you just finish watching Go West Young Meow? Okay, but for real though, the alternative is displaying its wants by just doing them, which Sprig has been doing the whole time so far.
It's always doing its own thing.
And I don't know what Anne expects Weed Cat to do based off of Liko telling it her wants. That night, Liko and Spriggs watch Nidothing explain the basics of Pokemon battles and type advantages.
In a Pokemon battle, trainers decide which moves their Pokemon should use!
That's a trainer battle, a specific type of Pokemon battle, but non-descriptive of all Pokemon battles. Because if that's how she wants to define Pokemon battles, then this right here, wouldn't count as a Pokemon battle. They sneak out at night to the same place that Weed Cat ran off to the previous day. What do? I guess Liko was taught that Spriggs, being a grass starter, should know leafage. Liko wants to make sure Weed Cat can stab, but After heading back, she pulls out her pendant box to stare at it, revealing to Anne that it was a good luck charm that Grandma gave her. According to Liko, Grandma said it's to protect her. Anne's like, you should wear it, but Liko says she's not ready, and at this point I'm thinking, girl, you're pretty young, why wouldn't you want to wear protection? It's not really a burden to do so, is it? Then comes the journey of Liko trying to figure Spriggs out. Why did none of this involve any teacher's help or advice? Perhaps the school is just kind of trash. Liko even says,
Maybe there isn't anything here to find.
about a school. There might be plenty of things you dislike within a school, but there should be plenty of things to find. If your school isn't trash, she decides she should be observant of Sprig's behavior and habits, so she started taking notes of it all. After some time, some sussy people with a pic of Lika's face show up at the school, trying to spot her amongst the students. But they fail for now.
You smell so good.
See, this is much better. There's much more consent from Weedcat this time. We're shown more midnight training, and by the next scene, they're on school break. What is this, a weekend break? I tried to count the days shown in this episode. If we don't assume multi-days time skips, then this does line up to be a Friday, since there were 4 distinct nights. The thing is, on theoretical day 4, she asks,
So which sunny spot is Sprigatito napping in today?
which, along with what's shown on her Rotom phone, proves it's been more than half a day of noting where Weedcat sleeps. I think that confirms episode 1 spans more than a week of time. Now why does any of this timeline shenanigans matter? It's for later. Teehee. Another distinguished sussy character spawned at the school, handing Liko a fake letter that says to give Grandma the pendant back. Sprig's like, grr, and Liko also figures this guy is
Just too suspicious.
so she grabs her bag and the pendant, finally wearing protection, climbs out the window. Oh wait, BBC removed that. Climbing onto the roof, she spots a woman trying to spot her, and then runs into a bad man. He laughs off Sprig's leafage, and Liko realizes, oh yeah, we don't need to beat up Rhydon. She orders for another leafage with no additional detail or direction, but Weedcat runs, blinds, and drugs Rhydon all in one. So this begs the question, why does Sprig need commands? It clearly figured all this out even though Liko just said to use another leafage. The antagonist MFs catch up to her, only to be interrupted by this guy that rides Charizard with goggles on, as if that's remotely necessary. They fight it out with each other. Amethio here gets the other two to hold back cause I guess he thought it's too unfair to gang up on Charizard? I don't know why you have backup then, if they're just gonna not be of use for you in battle. Liko sneaks away to jump off this roof, and she tries to justify this with,
I've got to do something. If I don't take a leap, I'll never find what I'm looking for.
What?
how the fuck is jumping off the roof helping anybody? This ain't even reckless at this point. This just screams Darwin Award. Also, the initial jumping is edited out by BBC as well, so they just cut to her in midair and yeah, protection kept her safe alright. When I first saw this back in April, I thought, oh my miraculous ladybug shelter. It's literally the same. Okie dokie, that's just about it for episode 1. Being the first episode, it does have a lot to do, introducing us to the characters and initial world building. The current cast of characters we have so far are workable. Lots of potential for sure. I'm not particularly attached to anyone though. Since we're on this cliffhanger, let's just move on to part 2. Part 2 begins with a recap of part 1. They included the doing their partner Pokemon bit, as well as the roof leaping shot that was edited out. Oh yeah, also Liko changes her sentiment of Sprig from
Half the time, I don't even know what it's thinking.
to most of the time,
I have no idea what it's thinking.
which is a weird regression to have when you're further into a relationship, but whatever. Finally, the opening. I'm becoming me. It's almost funny how cheesy it is. Nothing more needs to be said about it, really. Main character? MacGuffin? Nuh-uh. Okay, by timing of the shield popping up, I guess it was an involuntary reflex, cause supposedly Terrapagos was dormant or brewmating prior. But what is intentional is retracting back in to drop Liko and Weedcat to their deaths. Okay, I assume that's not what the episode is trying to portray, but it really did look like that. It saw Liko for a brief moment and then just decided to retract. If the episode wanted to portray it as Terrapagos running out of energy and thus failing to maintain the shield, the writers could have communicated did that through the shield blinking. They could have also had Terrapagos express some kind of struggle or discomfort to show that it's trying its best, but it can't sustain the shield any longer. That would have been more engaging too, because then we get to see some emotion from Terrapagos. It would demonstrate an attribute of likable characterization, because that comes across as determined. Take an example from Journeys. In episode 69, Grookey had a good scene for the first time. Grookey is a horrendous troublemaker pretty much anytime it does anything, but during this scene, Grookey tried its best to make it to go with the pills that it was tasked to carry. It refused to give up and kept going despite the tears, the bruises, and the tiresome journey. We can see its struggle in its movements. We can see the emotions on its face, the tears that rush down Grookey's cheeks. Go sees all this and they physically bond afterwards. There were interaction, emotional connection, and a struggle. You can feel things for the characters after seeing that, but does Terrapagos' scene involve any of that? This scene is a huge missed opportunity. So much potential to introduce Terrapagos and set it up as a lovable legendary from the beginning. It could have been great! Charizard swoops in to catch Liko and Sprigs. They're living out James's fantasy right now. Affectionate eye contact whilst being held like a baby by the arms of Charizard.
Hey, you two! Try not to be so reckless.
Nah, Freed. That was way beyond reckless.
That being said, I gotta admit, I like your courage.
No, please do not encourage this. You cannot put a positive spin to leaping off a rooftop unless it's known to be safe for you. For example, if you could fly. Sprig gets Liko to look at the full moon, causing her to reflect on what she just did. She romanticizes this action of jumping off the damn roof and implies that Weedcat is what filled her with enough courage to do so.
I was able to take that step because I had Sprigatito by my side.
Can this episode please stop gassing this up as if it was the right thing to do? Amicio and Zirconia press their drip buttons, and they all change in public. That's some seriously revolutionary technology that I'm stumped as to why we don't see more of. Apparently they have a Corviknight and 2 Skarmories, which means when Amicio was holding back during part 1, he was holding off on 4 Pokemon. Cause you know Konya has a Golduck and I'm not counting the drugged Rhydon. Just to have a 1v1 against Charizard. If they actually tried winning, they could have beat Char's ass in a 5v1. Not only could they have won extremely easily and gotten this over with, but they could have ridden the burbs to search for Liko easier.
You can just drop me off now, please!
Very poor choice of words. It's literally mimicking the situation from the Dark Knight. Freed introduces Liko to the brave Olivine, but then Rotom popped out to take in Freed's message to
Reset the wing deck.
But how did Rotom know to preemptively fly up to Freed's face in the first place? The wing deck has a force field that they turn on later to block out the explorers. These seem to be similar to the force fields used in Galar. Liko starts to get more concerned because more strangers that know her name came towards her. This group of strangers inhabiting the brave Olivine are called the Rising Volt Tacklers. This is Molly, the edgy nurse. She tries talking to Liko for half a second and found out Freed hasn't told Liko shit and just yoinked her out of school with no explanation provided. Freed owes Liko an apology. This is the Chef Murdoch. He and Molly are both upset with Freed's inaction. Some Pokemon show up as well, and Liko gets a bit distracted watching them chill. Fuecoco's doting on Charizard, and Weedcat is sharing drugs with new friends. I guess it just has complete control over whether the drugs knock you out or pleasure you, though one could argue being knocked out is pleasurable as well. Liko snaps out of it and tries to interrogate, but some supposed detection system alerts Rotom and distracts Freed.
Noctowl, they're not giving up. Take point on airspace security.
Bro really talking like everybody's on the same page. Even if Noctowl knows about the explorers, you're still supposed to say their name or something. You could be referring to endless things as they, and nobody would know unless you've cleared up
Who they are!
He walks towards the door to the inside of the ship whilst giving these 2 orders. Molly tells Freed that Orla... I'm calling her Oreo, cause that's much more fun to say. Molly notifies Freed that Oreo saw a big storm coming, so now Freed goes to pilot the ship and gets Charizard to help power the engine. His plan is to direct the brave Olivine into the storm and shake off the explorers.
Rockruff, return.
Why? I don't understand what's the point of doing this. These guys are getting kinda close, I guess. Would have been much quicker if y'all started following them sooner rather than waiting around when your goal is to go after someone/something. Liko tried to explain her situation to Molly, but it's disrupted again because Noctowl saw the explorers coming.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Cap. Should I drive?
Should you? Who else is gonna do it? Definitely not Cap. He would literally have to use his whole body weight to turn the ship, but he's just been chilling on the chair the whole time. As far as I know, the brave Olivine's been on autopilot. Assuming that's true, Cap should have came with Freed and Charizard. That's the first time I've heard any Charizard actually pronounce something that sounds like its own name. Every other time, and even in Japanese stuff, it's just been or something like that. Pokemon saying their names has been one of the most consistently inconsistent parts of the anime since the very beginning. Now I want to hear Dragonite say Dragonite. Amethio says they'll just use the Brave Olivine to shield against the storm. For some reason, that works. Sure.
Oh, Gramps, could you watch You-Know-Who?
If somebody has to look after Alola Muck, why didn't he just text or call Ludlow over here? He waited for Ludlow to just show up by happenstance when he could have just called him. The guy has a phone, you know. Also, to this day, I still don't understand why he said you-know-who instead of outright saying its name. Bro's not Voldemort, okay? The explorers start attacking the force field that surrounds the wing deck? What? Why not just enter from anywhere else? The force field only covers the wing deck, right? Freed gets notified of this and...
How about you fold up the wing deck?
Huh? How is that gonna prevent them from landing elsewhere? Like, there. Apparently Murdoch left to go check on Freed, and Freed just tells him to steer the ship. Why wasn't this communicated through a call or anything? These people just rely on others to randomly show up to execute their own plans that they don't share with others beforehand. Did the storm disrupt their phone's connection or something? They could have presented it as that instead of making these characters act so weird. Freed goes on to tell Oreo that he needs Charizard back to fly up to the wing deck, I guess. I thought there was a functional elevator system that you guys went through earlier. The removal of Charizard from the engine room will go on to not affect anything at all. Liko freaks out over being the main character. Don't worry, Liko, you're also the chosen one. They head inside to get Liko's pendant. Oh, my bad. They came in so Amethio can start asking Liko some useless questions. It takes over a full minute of screen time for him to even announce to her that he's gonna kidnap her and yoink her pendant because all he does is dude, you can interrogate all you want once you take her and her pendant to your base or wherever the hell. This is not the time to speak so damn slowly and with noticeable pauses between each word. It takes so long that Sprig has decided to attack them. Weedcat, you could have used Leafage instead of putting yourself in danger by attempting melee. Maybe Sprig got overconfident using melee because it knocked the Rhydon out with that so easily in part 1 that Weedcat wanted to replicate it? Finally, they go outside, but they thought it'd be a good idea to slowly walk the full length of the wing deck instead of getting on their burbs as soon as they can. Molly climbs up from the lower side, but when Freed rides on Charizard, passing through the edge of the wing deck triggers the glowing. Okay, for my sake, I'm gonna extract the definition of return in the show and replace that with ball, as if it were a verb. For example, they agreed to battle it out, but then Freed balls Charizard for no reason. That being said, Freed went out of his way to nerf himself just to 1v1 Amethio instead of trying his best in terms of, hey, maybe it'd be a good idea to use as many Pokemon as you can at once so that you'd have the best chance of winning. At this point, it's more of a contest for pride of who is better at 1v1s rather than both sides trying their best to win, because the explorers still have plenty of other Pokemon they can send out to support Cerulege. Even if you really wanted Charizard to not battle, bro could have been just spectating. Watching from the sidelines and analyzing battles or even just cheering on your teammates must be more enjoyable and beneficial than being balled for however long, right? Cinderace literally did this to Lucario, just as Dracovish did for Sirfetch'd. I feel like spectating should be the norm, and not the exception.
Charizard, return!
What is the meaning of this?
You and me both, Amethio. Cat baited out a bitter blade and went to charge himself with lightning. Freed compliments his looks and they go for a vault tackle that gets cut short by BBC. Why can't Cap running between Freed's legs be shown? Liko can't watch any longer and gives a surrender speech about not wanting to cause others trouble, and she says this at the end.
I'm sure Sprigatito feels the same.
The real problem here is speaking on behalf of Pokemon without sufficient input. It is awful to acknowledge that someone has limited communication skills and use that for your own convenience. It is nasty because you've not put the effort into collecting input from them before representing them. No, this cannot be applied to an infant or someone incapable of making their own decisions, but for those that can and do, which includes Pokemon, you have to be more careful. Now, of course, Liko didn't have any malicious intentions when she did this, and she learned very quickly that she was wrong. Nah, I'm just kidding. This lesson gets overshadowed by something else in the episode that's more Liko-centered.
I've been lying to myself. And Sprigatito knows it.
So the episode decided to present this situation as Liko cowering away and Weedcat reminding her to not do that. So the problem of misrepresenting Pokemon's feelings is, well, it resurfaces later in Horizons, but for now, it's brushed aside. Instead of just using Leafage, Spriggs waits till Liko yells it out, which pissed me off.
Hurry up.
Weedcat, you're not in a situation where your opponent is looking to 1v1 your partner. Amitheo's not trying to test Liko's ability to pick moves for you to use. Amitheo's doing that to Freed right now, but you? If you have the power to unleash allergy hell upon people, then why would you wait for Liko to let them know first? You don't need to have Liko yell it out and signal to the enemy what is coming. You just gave them time to prepare. You can aggressively meow at Liko later. This is not the time to wait around until Liko says Leafage. Have some autonomy for once and fire it, please. Now, this is where the timeline comes into play. It's outrageous to go from this to this within the span of a week. But a few months, it's acceptable. So the overpowered Leafage shatters the force field completely. The wind gets in and Weedcat gets blown off to the side. Gosh, Spriggs has had to experience almost falling to its death twice in this episode alone. Corviknight is there for the save and the explorers retreat. Hold on, why is Skarmory holding Cerulege? I'm gonna make a logical leap here and say balling your Pokemon doesn't transfer all of the weight into the ball. It has to reduce most of the Pokemon's weight, or else Freed would have a whole Charizard to carry in his pocket right about now. And that's the problem. Charizard not being present during this scene is a necessary component that spawns the events of episode 3, which is all about rescuing Sprigatito. I'll list 3 scenarios for saving Weedcat. Charizard not being balled in the first place. What's the point of doing this? No, the rain is not an issue. We've seen Charizard fly through the storm to get Freed and Cap up here. And after they got inside the force field, the rain clearly didn't get in there until the force field broke, so Freed had no reason to do it preemptively. If they wanted to portray the rain as being remotely a problem for Charizard, they could have easily indicated that by showing a reaction of discomfort or pain when it did fly in the rain briefly. Balling Charizard in this episode made no sense and it should have been there till the end where it would have been ready to go get Sprig. Freed could have thrown Charizard out as a reaction to Sprig slipping off, similar to what Ametheo did. That would have alleviated the problem at least, because I'd assume in that situation they'd fight it out for Weedcat. Let's say Freed reacts really slowly and only got the idea after Ametheo did it first. Sure, Charizard can come out and go after the explorers. Chase after them now. It's not too late. You have a flying Pokemon. Part 2's contrived conclusion makes Charizard part of the problem as well, because Char consented to going inside. This is what not consenting to going inside looks like. And of course, Charizard didn't do that. Another option is to come out by itself afterwards. We know Pokemon can come out by themselves.
Come out, Fennekin!
You can also prompt them to do so by asking like Serena did. Now, asking for it like Serena is an option that's accessible to Freed, to Captain Pikachu, even Liko. A little "Charizard, please come out to save the cat" would have sufficed. None of them thought about bringing out Charizard at all, not even from seeing Ametheo do it first. For the ending of part 2 to make sense, it has to rely on both the characters and the audience to forget about the existence of Charizard. It abuses the fact that the audience has only been introduced to Charizard for 2 episodes, so the viewer can easily fail to remember that Char could have been there, but expecting me to believe that Freed, who's been with Charizard for years, forgets about it? The ending of part 2 is disastrous. There's no other way to put it. If they still wanted to conclude with Sprig sliding off the edge and Corviknight saving it, they could have written it so that Charizard is either still in the engine room, making its presence there necessary, or have Charizard be knocked out by the end so they can't chase after the explorers when they retreat. How do I rate this 2-parter? The problem I find with rating episodes in general is not only do I struggle at a finalized answer, but also people have this tendency to just take a number rating and compare it to other people's number ratings and disregard all forms of criteria that was used. All that gets defenestrated just for someone to go, "Grr, they rated it this, what the fuck?" So no rating for now. But ending on a cliffhanger that makes the protagonist look stupid and ignorant of a whole character's existence doesn't make me feel good. We're moving on to episode 3.
For sure, cause Sprigatito's with me.
Well, it would be right now if Charizard came out to help. Once upon a time, Grandma shows off the pendant to Liko.
If you wear it, you may someday find yourself on an adventure, my dear.
What do you mean you may? Is the likelihood of adventure 0% for Liko otherwise? If not, then why would you say that? Well, I assume she means increase the odds or be the cause of an adventure. Okay, how? How does this supposedly protective charm make it more likely for Liko to find herself on an adventure if she wears it? Well, the explorers already went after her before she put it on, so I'm guessing the wearing part is irrelevant. What do we have left in this quote then? If you have it, people are gonna go after you. Wearing the pendant doesn't magically increase the likelihood of adventure. It displays a valuable object that people want to take from you. Why would she give Liko the pendant if she knew it'd attract predators? And if she didn't know it'd attract predators, then why did she say that? What does she mean? Oreo noticed the flag missing because during part 2, it was struck by lightning and we learned it ended up on a beach, in the grasp of Roy's fingers.
Freed's out there now trying to track down the explorers.
If only he did that as soon as the explorers flew off. Freed returns, taking off the unnecessary goggles. Like, for real, Cap doesn't even wear goggles. They're clearly not needed. Freed tells everyone that the explorers plus Sprigatito are in a nearby town, and Liko tries to convince Freed to fly her over there so she can
Look for Sprigatito myself.
Freed's like, that's silly, they have Pokemon and you don't, we'll do it together after breakfast, okay? Whilst that's happening, Fuecoco's trying to get Charizard's attention. I had a hard time deciding whether this is a fire hazard or not, and I thought to myself, I would never want fire this close to wooden floorboards, unless I wanted to commit arson, so I'm counting it. Instead of clearing it up earlier, Freed Freudian slipped Liko that the rising Volt tacklers are actually her bodyguards. He brushes it off, no apology. I'd like this flaw of his to cause a genuine issue for the others in the future, so that they be motivated enough to take this problem of Freed withholding information seriously. They have their breakfast and arrive at the port.
All right, little buddy, come on out.
Okay, they've kept the consistency, I guess, but this implies that Rockruff was in the ball the whole time between the middle of part 2 till now. Did bro miss breakfast? The general problem I have with the norm is this weird passive consent thing going on. Passive consent is taking failure to reject or refuse as a yes. It's, well, you didn't say no, so it must be yes, right? Just to be clear, this is not exactly relevant to unconscious Pokemon. The way this applies to Pokemon is balling them. It's something they can do by themselves, whether it's by contact or teleportation. So why would Pokemon going back in by themselves be the exception instead of the norm? Because in the Pokemon anime, Pokemon balling themselves is extremely rare to see. It seems to me that whenever Pokemon does it to themselves, there's a clear narrative reason. For example, when Wobbuffet couldn't stand getting harassed by rabid fans, or when Oshawott fast traveled away to avoid being squirted on even more. But when a trainer does it, it's often, very often, awfully unclear as to why. Like Freed in part 2. Why'd you do that, man?
What is the meaning of this?
What do you think?
You stupid.
Or even when Freed sneakily did it just now. Charizard was there in the previous scene, and by the next scene, poof! We know Char isn't just chilling on the ship, because later in the episode is shown to be with Freed all along. Freed didn't plan out this jumping off the roof escape method from the beginning. Pretty sure he came up with that plan during the middle of the episode, so Charizard did not need to be balled any earlier. Speaking of Pokemon being able to teleport back into their balls at will, the ending of part 2 is even worse when you acknowledge that Sprigatito can do what Oshawott did. If Oshawott can do it, why can't you? Also, teleporting Sprigatito back is another option that Liko has access to on top of calling out to Charizard. Part 2's ending is truly atrocious, and all the inexplicable balling from part 2 and on is genuinely unforgivable. Okay, that's that for now. Their plan is for Rockruff to trace Sprig's scent with its powerful nose because it engaged in a period of playful bodily contact during part 2. They allocate who will be doing what and what, then comes the Rising Voltacular's handshake. Their hand movement ends upwards to represent the rising element. I was an unthinking idiot for too long and didn't realize that till recently. Apparently Molly ordered potions and purposefully doesn't go inside the Pokemon Center, getting Liko to pick up the stuff for her. This makes me wonder how much of this is testing Liko's independence and how much of it is Molly not wanting to go in a Pokemon Center. Ludlow doesn't notice Zur putting a tracker on the ship because he fished up a Magikarp. We will proceed to not ever find out what happens to said Magikarp. Liko watches a Nidoking video covering the contents and purpose of a Pokemon Center. Why was this not taught in school already? Honestly, for a school that focuses so much on Pokemon, fundamentals like what to do with a Pokemon injury should have been covered ASAP. Random kid shows up with an injured Vulpix and delays Liko's potion acquisition.
I was too slow calling out moves, and it got hurt. All because of me.
In a situation like that, it can still dodge whilst you're struggling to pick moves. Sometimes trainers yell dodge it as if the default option wasn't to do that already. But still, it's not entirely your fault. Vulpix should know the possible consequences of consenting to a battle, because they do have the option of refusal. For example, teleporting out of the way of any attack! Anyway, Spriggs has been chilling, cause Konya has managed to get way too many cat toys within the span of less than a full day. This woman really went from this to this
Woohoo! You are the cutest!
within under 24 hours. After Liko got the stack of I feel like there's more than just potions in there, she dashes off at the sound of Rockruff barking at Konya because she's been engaging in loving bodily contact with Weedcat as well. Konya lures Freed and Liko directly to their base. Freed tells Liko to go back because he foresees a battle ensuing, but she couldn't care less. She doesn't reply at all. Okay, so at this point, they know exactly where the criminal's hideout is. Maybe try calling Officer Jenny? Does she just not exist in this world? Because I've yet to see her mentioned nor appear in Horizons. Is this the differentiating factor between Ash's universe and Horizons? This world is suffering from severe Officer Jenny-lessness. Their plan is for Freed to distract Amethio in a battle and Liko to go get Spriggs.
But listen, the minute you smell trouble, you run.
This plan is risky, but Liko's recklessness forces Freed to try this. Before Liko even gets to Sprigatito, she only has Rockruff by her side. So if Zur or Konya were there, they'd already be outnumbered because they each have 2 Pokemon. Liko and Rockruff could get cornered and have no way of booking it out of there. She's lucky that not only is Zur not around, but that Konya is chilling outside of the warehouse instead of hanging out with Sprigatito. Also, you'd think with Amethio calling Zur to return from stalking the Brave Olivine, he'd actually show up later this episode, but no.
Then he waddled away, waddle waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle waddle.
Who turned on the lights? Freed and Amethio battle it out again, but between cutting to Liko saving Weedcat, they ascend through the ceiling to the damn roof somehow. Liko runs into Konya, who is outside because...
Widow Sprigatito! Come to me, come on! I've got some yummy snacks just for you!
She ran out of snacks earlier in this episode, which incentivized her to buy the yummy snacks, which she threw on the floor when Rockruff sniffed Weedcat's scent on her. Which means the reason Konya was not inside with Sprigatito when Liko came after it is because she went back to the place where she threw the yummy snacks to pick them up and only got back after Liko got Spriggs out of its room. This woman thought it'd be a good idea to leave Weedcat unattended, even though she knows Liko is aggressively after her cat, just to go back and get some yummy snacks. Maybe she just really trusted Amethio to prevent Sprig from escaping. Weedcat pulled out that overpowered leafage again and successfully escapes.
They're gone.
Here's an idea. How about you get on Skarmory so you can access an aerial view of the surrounding area to see where your precious Sprigatito has gone. With the rush of Sprigatito leaves, Frida signified that Liko and Rockruff has made it out with the cat. He pulls out a trust ball to destroy his crotch and flies off on Charizard's back.
I see. A distraction so that she could get away.
Does it matter? If Freed is acting as the distraction, and now you're no longer distracted, are you gonna go after her on your Corviknight? Freed decided to fly in whatever that direction is, not even trying to pick up Liko. You have your chance to go after the little girl. Konya can as well. She's running on her legs, whilst you guys can be flying up for a bird's eye view to spot her and chase her down super easily.
Barely an inconvenience.
She's literally isolated from Freed. You have your chance to go after her right now.
What are you waiting for?
Get her now whilst you still can. This is the second episode in a row where it requires the audience to forget the existence of someone's flying Pokemon for it to make sense. Liko gets back on the ship with Sprig and reflects on past events.
I'm a Pokemon trainer now.
Not entirely if you go by Nidothing's full definition. I didn't mention this earlier, but I'll do it now. Cap has his captain's cap back, despite yeeting it in the warehouse. When he was leaving, he didn't have it either, so we're left to assume that somewhere on the Brave Olivine there is a pile of backup hats just sitting in a storage compartment. Or Cap just regenerates that back onto his head at a high frequency to replace yeeted ones, who knows. Liko pulls out those trailer quotes. I don't know what I'm caught up in, like what's with the pendant, and why are these explorers people after me? She uses curiosity for those things to justify staying a bit longer, as if they even discussed how long she'd be staying prior. I thought he told her they're gonna be her bodyguards. How does that mean they're gonna immediately leave her or something? Now it's Freed's turn to drop trailer quotes, but guess what? Just like Liko, these aren't the same quotes from the trailer. Our mission is to uncover the mysteries of Pokemon and of the world. They redid his and Liko's line for the actual episode, changing up words and cutting
And of the world
entirely. Freed makes it clear that discovering mysteries of Pokemon is what the Rising Volt tacklers do on a regular basis. That leaves me wondering what they were up to before Liko's mother hired them, since his answer is quite vague. This is the first time Cap smiles with teeth. Suddenly, Freed announces they're gonna head to Liko's home in Paldea for no reason and says,
Hey, while we're there, we can collect our bodyguard payment from Liko's mother.
all this so forced. Do you really need cash specifically? In a world where they've invented force fields, put rotoms into phones, and have drip switching buttons, you now need to fly all the way to Paldea to get paid? It sounds like he also came up with the idea of going to Liko's house before he thought of getting payment, so now I'm confused why he thought to go there if not for the payment. They just established that they would try discovering the mystery of this pendant. Liko wants to find out, everyone wants to find out, and they're just going home for some reason now? Oreo says mentioning the payment killed the mood, and Liko complains that Freed's being too honest. Why? Liko's been having the problem of Freed not telling her things, and now, when Freed tries to justify going to Liko's house, she's saying he's too honest? There are times when people can overshare gross and gruesome details, and you might not want to hear that. But this is necessary, in the sense that it would have been so much more awkward if he didn't bother to share this information. If he just, we the Rising Volt tacklers discover the mysteries of Pokemon and we're all gonna head to Liko's house now, or something like that. It would have been confusing and suspicious again, because they haven't settled on what they're gonna do at Liko's house. So no, that's not being too honest. That's an attempt at sharing crucial information. Cut to Liko video calling Anne about being on an adventure, explaining how she'll take her classes remotely and dropping the title.
I hope that you find what you're looking for out there, Liko.
For sure. Cause Sprigatito's with me.
Yeah, she doesn't open her mouth to say this and just kinda left Anne hanging. I'll talk about Roy next time. Why was it in the episode in the first place? So the viewers can watch this battle play out in a more open environment so that the Charizard escape can happen? No more crotch crumbling descent onto Char's back. But more importantly, it would have been more awkward seeing Amicio stand there, watching as Freed and Liko both get away on ground level. It would have made Freed look bad due to awkward escape, and no suspenseful roof jump onto Charizard. So the writers just lazily decided, yeah, let's teleport them onto the roof. Pokemon Horizons for the first 3 episodes is underwhelming. I have the least problems with episode 1, even though that's the most boring. Episode 2 and 3's endings manages to parallel each other. In episode 2, Char is disregarded by Freed and the others. In episode 3, it's Amethio's turn to disregard his flying Pokemon. There's lots more characters and concepts to talk about in Horizons. I can get to those later down the road. What I have said in this video are my opinions and ideas that are subject to change. Share your juicy ideas in the comments if you have any. I'd love to read what y'all have to say. If you have any feedback for the video, I'd love that too. I'll try going into less unnecessary detail next time. I've been cooking this video for months. This has been Corelopy, and I hope you enjoyed.